Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be reviewing or previewing Week 17 of the NFL while Bobby continues to vacation in Costa Rica. I hope he's enjoying himself. So this is Week 17, and I believe that a few seasons ago, or maybe it was the last season, they stopped giving the $1 million away for first, maybe a couple of weeks before. But they are doing a full $1 million for first on DraftKings this week. And what you're going to hear with a lot of content providers, if you're into that kind of thing, is a lot of, people throwing their hands up in the air, people, speculating on a lot of very speculative plays, because Week 17 is a very unique animal in that there are some players that get rested, some teams that don't have much to play for. And this is the narratives that you'll hear. There are some players that have incentives that are out there waiting for them to grab. And let's just say that I do not believe that people are going to put the requisite effort into this slate this week. I think that people that really do follow the news right down to the end with respect to what players are going to start and what players are going to get workload have a very, very significant edge. And for $1 million for first, I do believe that it's very rare that that kind of an edge does exist. Now, there's quite a bit of variance involved in that risk, in that edge, but I do believe that it's a very unique situation when it comes to that. Now, with that said, this is Friday, so I honestly don't have that particular edge at this particular moment because there are still a lot of coaches that haven't decided what they're going to do. So you are going to have to be very alert to last-minute news and last-minute announcements with respect to what type of players are going to be starting. So with that said, I do want to give at least an overview of a couple of things regarding this slate. And as usual, I want to hopefully weave in some overarching concepts with respect to DFS, portfolio management, gauging psychology, and things of that nature within the construct of reviewing the slate. So, we talk about this a lot, the difference between sports with respect to projections, and where some sports are more conducive to projections being, I don't want to say the end-all be-all, but the core data points, and some other sports require you to have a little more finesse, let's put it that way, with respect to deviating from those projections. And as I've mentioned, football is one of those sports where it's kind of in the middle. Now, what you're going to hear narrative-wise with respect to this week is something like XYZ team has nothing to play for, or XYZ is not incentive to win, and that is going to impact their fantasy production. So some questions I have, just theoretical questions. Number one, how much of that is going to be factored into the projections? How much of that is going to be factored into, is going to reflect in the popularity of these players? Because, a very wise tout, I should say, a very wise player does give content on another site when asked about Jimmy Butler revenge and some of these NBA guys return to their hometowns. Why do you not believe in that? The person says, not that I don't believe in it, I just don't have any way to project it. You have Alex Burke revenge. Okay, even if that's the case, if he really wants to stick it to Utah, how am I going to project that? And that is a point, How are you going to be able to quantify that? However, even though you're not able to quantify it, that doesn't mean that does not exist, that boost, that inherent boost does not exist. It doesn't mean it does, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't. So, again, just because you can't put a number on something doesn't mean you can't give it some finesse and can't give it some boost. So with these players or with these teams that are not playing for anything or something words to that effect, there's a couple of ways that can manifest itself. Number one is they play different players. And that's one thing. I mean, if you play different players, then you can adjust your projections because of that. Like if you're a quarterback and if you're a wide receiver that's used to catching the ball from, Drew Brees or whatever, and you find out that the Saints are sitting him, then those wide receivers projections can be reduced because players have been sat because they're not playing for anything. However, if you just have a team that's playing all their guys that's either not motivated or you just don't feel as though we're going to put out their best effort or things like that, there's no real way to incorporate that in the projections, yet that type of humanness may exist such that either people don't pounce on that or just otherwise are just ignored, So I do think that's something that needs to be considered. The other thing you're going to be hearing about this week are incentives. So there are some players that are in line to break records. There are players that are in line to secure bonuses. And the logic is that they're more likely to put out that extra effort to achieve those bonuses or to achieve that, whatever it is that they're incentivized to achieve. And these, in my opinion, come in kind of different models, I guess. If there's one guy who just gets a financial bonus for achieving a certain number of yards or whatever, I do think that the rest of the team is going to be, where possible, kind of on board with him, with him doing that. And I do think that, you have a guy like, let's just say Christian McCaffrey, who's busted his butt for the team the whole season. I do think that if it's at all possible for them to get him that scrimmage yard record or whatever he needs, 215 scrimmage yards, that they'll get it for him, or they will attempt to give him the opportunity to get that. Yet on the other hand, the defense plays too, right? And I've seen it work both ways. I've seen when players are just looking for records that the other team does everything in its power to not be the poster. You know what I mean? They don't want that they don't want to be responsible for giving up, say, the record-tying hit or the record-tying home run or the record-tying yards or whatever. So it kind of goes both ways. So don't just presume that because one guy is incentivized to do something that other people are not, I don't want to say incentivized, that don't necessarily want them to do it on their watch. Just throw that out there. So as you can see, I'm kind of being deliberate about this because, I'm not going to just review every game because some of these games are just atrocious. But with that said, you do need to be on the lookout for late breaking news with respect to, if you hear there's a 3K running back that's starting, that's going to be getting a huge workload. I mean, you just have to play him. I mean, almost regardless of who it is. So you just kind of have to be on the lookout for that. But in the absence of that, I want to look at some situations that I do think should be looked at. Jets Buffalo, I'm just not interested. It's a cold weather game. Buffalo doesn't, I think they're locked into their seeds, so they don't need to play anybody, and they might not. And if they don't, if they're starting a backup running back, you got to watch for that. But I'm not speculating for that right now. I'm not speculating that right now. Before we even move on, there is one thing I also would like to talk about is with this concept of teams not playing for anything. In my NBA review yesterday, I talked about, I was actually making a baseball reference, the concept of park upgrade and pace upgrade for basketball and things like that. Just remember that there are two types of teams that are, out of the playoffs in the NFL. There are teams that are out of the playoffs and have been out of the playoffs for quite a while. And there are other teams that just recently became out of the playoffs. And I think that those are two completely different animals. And we'll get to a really interesting game that exhibits that in a few minutes. We can go right to that if you want. Yeah, I mean, let's I'll give you an example. So this Atlanta-Tampa Bay game, okay? Good weather. It's good to start off with. I mean, you have these two teams that just sling the ball around. And neither team has had anything to play for weeks, okay? So they are used to this situation. They have been playing like this all year. And both of these teams are just throwing the ball all over the freaking place. And they've also been very, very warm and receptive to teams throwing against them. So this game is just a smash game from just a setup perspective. Because you don't have people speculating, oh, this team is not playing for anything, this team is specifically motivated. Neither of these teams are specifically motivated at all. Neither of these teams are specifically unmotivated at all. They're just motivated in the same way that they have been for the past, 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks, actually. So I think this is a game where you can really get a lot of fantasy goodness. And I'm going to look at the ownership here, but it really doesn't look like, at least for now, a lot of this game is generating massive ownership. I mean, I look at this. Like, on the Atlanta side, okay, you got Julio Jones at 15%. It's not the end of the world. And on the Tampa side, you have Rashad Perryman at only 10 and Justin Watson up at 15. But, I mean, you have Jameis Winston. He's, I think, 650 yards away from all-time passing records. I mean, is he going to get 650 yards? No, but Jameis Winston, he's going to die trying. So this game is just, I don't know what the total is on this game. What is the total on this Tampa Atlanta game? I don't bet sports really, but what does this look like? It can't be only 48. That can't be. I'm looking at these implied totals. What is it, light rain? Is that why it's kept at 40? I mean, that's just ridiculous. So I guess that means it's going to be an under. I mean, it's so obvious that it's going to be an over, so I guess it's just going to have to be an under. But assuming all these guys play, I mean, this is a great way to start. Let's put it that way. So let me go back to all games second. So New Orleans, Carolina. I kind of alluded to this a few minutes ago. So Christian McCaffrey. And this is the way I think, fortunately or unfortunately. Christian McCaffrey needs, I think, 215 scrimmage yards to break some record. Everybody knows it. Carolina knows it. I actually don't think the Saints care one way or another. As long as they win, because I think they do have to win, they could give a crap how many yards McCaffrey gets in garbage time. You know what I mean? So if the Saints get a lead, I mean, sure, let them dump it off to McCaffrey all day long. So I do think there is a certain amount of friendliness, let's put it that way, involved in this scrimmage record. And so I would not go out of my way to fade it. Now, as far as ownership goes, I mean, he's got to be 50%, right? I mean, they're showing him 38% owned right now, but I find it difficult to believe that that's all he gets, especially with all the 3K value that's just bound to open up. I mean, it's going to be so easy to play him. So whether you play him at 50% ownership is definitely a decision you have to make. But as I say, the one good thing about playing 50% McCaffrey, if he busts, is that you have 50% of lineups without him. What do you think about that? Anyway, I don't want to play anybody else on the Carolina side. I mean, if anything, this is going to be a McCaffrey showcase game, just to get that record or whatever. The Saints, on the other hand, they do need to win, and there's some issues here because Michael Thomas has missed some time from practice. He's got a hand injury or something like that. So the first guy I guess I would look at is going to be Alvin Kamara, and let's just see the way he projects. I mean, he projects to be one of the top plays from a value perspective on the slate with respect to running backs. McCaffrey's the second best one. We'll get to the top one in a minute. And Kamara only is showing to be 10% owned. So we were on him pretty good last week, if you might remember. He was very, very low owned last week because of recent performance. But this looks like another good opportunity to play him and have a 10% ownership. I mean, sounds good to me. Team that is going to be motivated to win. Kamara is the lead option out of the running game. He could run. He can, all this stuff that gets factored into the projections, obviously. But this is a guy I would definitely look at as one of my main running backs. Cleveland, Cincinnati. I mean, come on. I know I said this last week. Like last week, I looked at the Cincinnati-Miami game. At the Cleveland Pitt game. I said, Cleveland stinks. We don't play any of this game. I think it worked out. I think it's similar. I mean, you could, if you wanted to. Let's look at how these guys project. So if I'm going to stay on brand here, you do have two teams that have been basically playing for nothing for a while. So it is kind of a neutral motivation matchup, if I want to coin a phrase. I mean, Joe Mixon at 1% ownership. I mean, that's not bad, is it? I might try that. Tyler Boyd at 3% ownership. Landry, Beckham. I mean, 3%. I mean, look, just for the hell of it. I mean, if you put in, I'm not gonna put in these guys yet because there's other good running backs I want to get to. But screw it, we'll get to some. Let's say you put in Elliott, we'll get to him. Let's say you put in McCaffrey. And then you wanted to get some kind of lower-owned stack. You could do worse than play the Cincinnati-Cleveland game. As long as you get news that, as long as you don't get news that nobody's sitting. I mean, look, these guys have been similarly motivated the whole freaking season. If you want to, they were never going anywhere. And as a matter of fact, I mean, you can make the case that Dalton, I mean, he's psyched to be back, man. I mean, he hadn't played, and he's back and throwing touchdowns. And, well, I wouldn't say 4 touchdowns last week, and now he gets Cleveland. Maybe this is it, man. Maybe this is the game. And you don't have to worry about either team having a motivation upgrade or motivation downgrade. They're playing the same. You got, I don't know. This could be one way to go. Let's put it that way. All right. What are the positives and negatives of this game? So Green Bay needs to win. Well, that's good. Everybody knows they need to win, which is not good, right? It's going to affect their ownership, and it's probably not going to get factored into projections, although it might. Actually, Devontae Adams, he is projecting really well. Probably is projecting really well anyway, though, right? I mean, the game's in a dome. He's the huge target share leader on the team. He was always going to project well, and he's 20%, which certainly makes sense. So everything kind of lines up for this as a spot, right? Is 20% on a wide receiver worth playing? Again, that's usually not my thing, but that's certainly something to think about. Now, here's one thing to also keep in mind with these must-win teams playing against these teams that are just kind of out of it. Just remember, as my good friend Jack, I'll bring him on one of these days, once told me, a long time ago, Must-win games don't win, okay? Just because a team has to win just doesn't make it so. And just because a team has to win doesn't mean the other team is just so interested in letting them do so, especially a division rival, okay? Like, you have Detroit, who's a division rival with Green Bay. Oh, Green Bay has to win, so we're going to just let them? I mean, life doesn't work that way, you know? I mean, if I were Detroit, I would love to stick it to the Packers. Are you kidding me? So, again, I'm not a sports betting guy, but if I were, Green Bay, an 11-point favorite on the road, I don't know about that. That seems quite ambitious, let's put it that way. So, I mean, what you might do if you wanted, you could kind of go the other way. I mean, you could, this is a dome. You could play Detroit guys. And then this way, you run it back with someone like Adams. I mean, this is going to be kind of tough to get all these guys in. You probably won't be able to get both McCaffrey and Elliott in. But this is a way you could go. You have a dome game. You have playing receivers that are going to be no percent owned because, Green Bay # has to win. But even if Green Bay does get a big lead or whatever, then these guys are going to get garbage time run anyway. So I'll tell you who else is motivated. This guy, Blau, he's motivated. He's playing for probably a starting job in some other city, right, for when Stafford comes back. So we'll see. But that's a way you can go. All right, Chargers, Kansas City. It's kind of weird that Kansas City needs to win. I mean, but they do. And there are a couple of guys that you're going to hear about to project kind of well from this game. The running backs in particular, I believe Damian Williams. He's actually not projecting all that great, and he is showing to be 17% owned. So, again, I don't know if I'm going to go that route. But I think that, again, you think about narratives, you think about the way Kansas City is going to do this. I mean, if a team really is going to need to win, they always need to win. But if a team really, really needs to win, like it's this week or nothing, then they're going to put the ball in the hands of the person that's most reliable. They're going to do what's most likely to get done. And I do think that Mahomes is going to just, they're going to put the ball in his hands and say, you know what, get me 4 touchdowns, and then, then we can breathe. And I certainly would not bet against Patrick Mahomes' ability to do that. So you could certainly go that route, and you could be on brand because you are playing a team that, quote unquote, has to win. Okay. But likewise, again, don't just because they have to win doesn't mean Chargers is going to let them. But I think Mahomes, you could play him with the usual suspects. You could play him with Kelsey. You could play him with Hill, something like that. Now, with respect to ownership, Tyreek Hill, 7%. Is that real? That's got to be updated. I mean, I'll take a shot. Let's put it that way. Especially if you get kind of cheaper running backs emerge, I would definitely take a shot at something like that. And again, I wouldn't play any of these guys as one-offs, but as kind of a run back, if you were going to play Kansas City guys, then again, nothing. This is nothing fancy, but you'd run it back with someone like Keenan Allen, okay, something like that. But again, watch for news. Make sure all these guys are playing. But this is kind of standard type stuff. Chicago, Minnesota. The coach has already announced that he doesn't know what he's doing about these players from Minnesota. So I'm not even going to speculate which of these guys are playing. I will just say that they are in a dome. So if they are playing and they does say they're getting run and they're going to be 2% owned, I would try it. I would try some Thielen, maybe some Diggs, something like that. Chicago, just keep an eye on this guy, Javon Wims. He's been getting some targets. He's been getting some run. And, this is like a perfect opportunity for him to bury everybody. You know what I mean? So Javon Wims at 3K is a guy to throw in your wild card player pool. And again, like I say, if the rest of your lineups become too chalky, something like that, could be interesting. All right, the next interesting game I want to talk about. So the first one, well, not interesting game, but Atlanta-Tampa was certainly, this is certainly looks like a great game. Miami-New England, I think is kind of easy, but I wanted to at least lay this on you. Okay, I do think, again, I'm not a sports bettor, I'm not whatever. I'm pretty good at gauging psychology just from the other things that I do in life, but I do think that Miami is going to give them a good game. That coach from Miami, guy's awesome. Okay, he's been dealt an incredibly difficult hand, and with all the talk that he was going to tank, and they took all of his players away. They took Kenyon Drake away, and Kenyon Drake's basically been the best fantasy running back in the last 4 weeks. Okay, they took everything away from this guy, and he just tries so hard every game. He had one of the greatest. He put on one of the greatest plays I've ever seen a couple of weeks ago with that fake punt to kicker play. This guy's good, this Brian Flores. And, this is a classic situation where New England has to win to, I guess, to get a bye. They're a zillion-point favorite. They're at home. And Brian Flores would just love nothing more to pull off the monumental upset in this spot. Okay, probably not going to happen. Probably a minus 900 underdog at the least. But I will say that they are going to put out their best effort. They are not going to just roll over and let New England just kill them, unless New England can just kill them anyway. All right, so don't talk about teams that need to win versus teams that have nothing to play for. Believe me, this Brian Flores brings his 100% max effort every game, and all of his players do too. The players are just not very good. That's the problem. But don't kid yourself. They are going to be putting out an effort. Now, with that said, when I first looked at this, I thought this was the easy one because I'm like, okay, I'm New England. I have to win. Brady has been it's been difficult for him to get much passing game going. Julian Edelman is just hurt. Okay, I don't care how much his target share is going down, his snap share is going down. He is hurt. And there is nobody that wants this bye more than he does, okay, if he can even play at all. So for me, when I first looked at it, for me, this was easy. I mean, you take Sony Michel and you just move on because that's what New England likes to do. And I don't know if anybody's been watching this year, but if New England could, they would run the ball like 40 times a game. They would. And I mean, it kind of reminds me that when Denver had Manning, and Manning was just not as prolific in the passing game, and they would just love to just cram that ball down people's throats and let their defense just kind of take over. And this is exactly what New England would like to do. So if they get any kind of traction out of Michel, they're going to keep on pounding him. And if they do get a lead, they're just going to keep giving him the ball. I mean, the only thing for me that would prevent with this game script from Michel smashing would be them resting him. You know what I mean? And maybe give Burkhead more carries or Brandon Bolden more carries or something like that. Which you think is this going to ruin your day? If you have Sony Michel and then Brandon Bolden comes in and gets you, I don't know. But I mean, so to me, this is just as good of a play as, not just as good, but it's a similar type play to some of these other running backs on teams that need to win. I mean, this is the guy they give the ball to. I mean, it is. It doesn't always work out for them, but if they can get it going, this is what they want to do. I mean, this is one of those guys that, as I like to say in the NBA, he's very self-correlating. I mean, if he has one good run, they'll give him another, and then they'll give him another, and they'll give him another. As long as he's producing, they're not going to split his work. He's just going to keep on getting it. So for me, this kind of fits all these narratives pretty well. I don't want to play anybody else from this game, I don't think. And no, I don't want to play these Miami guys running it back. Although you could. I mean, if this is a 28-point game, you want to go play some more Jabari Parkers. Some more Devontae Parker. Is that his name? Yeah. You can. You want to play more Gesicki on the run back? You could do that too. But I don't want to play Edelman. I just think he's hurt. And this is the way I would go here. I think this is a very interesting spot, if you want to know the truth. All right, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, I'm not getting involved. I'm not getting involved in the discussion right now, okay? But you could research forever about RG3, how the offense is designed that anybody could be put in at the quarterback position. And, you know, you want to play RG3 in this spot, you could try it. I wouldn't do it. I think Pittsburgh, you know, although look, Pittsburgh's defense is really good. They need to win, right? Doesn't Pittsburgh still need to win, right? And I wouldn't mess around with Baltimore reserves against Pittsburgh. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't play Justice Hill. I wouldn't play Gus Edwards. I wouldn't play these guys in this spot. But I mean, it's GPP. Do whatever you want. But this is very uninteresting to me. Washington at Dallas. I mean, here's the problem. That's what ruins me. I asked my 6-year-old, and I don't have a 6-year-old. I say that for dramatic effect. I asked my 6-year-old, "What do you think about this game?" You know, he said, "Oh, Dallas don't they need to win? Just give the ball to Elliott every play. Washington's not really good. Just why mess around? Just give the ball to Elliott every play. And then when they get the lead, give it to Elliott some more, and, you know, it's going to get 200 yards." And unfortunately, I don't have a lot to argue with that logic, but I'm going to try. Again, they say in the stock market, the stock market likes to climb a wall of worry. What that means is that you need to have some countervailing opinion, okay? If there's nothing above you to stop you from going to the heavens, right? Is there nothing to stop you? Then it's probably just kind of too easy, and you should be thinking about why it's not going to happen. You need to have some countervailing force to go up against when you have an opinion on something. There's nothing in life, maybe, that is just easy, okay? And I would like to think that if I'm going to take Elliott, that there's at least got to be some argument against it, which I'm overcoming, right? Or maybe if he actually, I'm showing him 24% owned. I mean, if he becomes like 50% owned, I'll make the argument. I mean, I'll do it, okay? Because that's what this game is all about. It's interlaying projections with upside, with ownership, okay? So my logic, what I just set forth, I can't argue with. I will throw out 2 things to you, maybe 3. Number 1 is Washington, for better or worse, has been playing okay, all right? They have been trying. They put up good efforts. They kicked the crap out of Carolina, actually. Carolina was supposed to go into Washington and bury them with McCaffrey, if I'm not mistaken. And Washington kicked their butts, okay, on the road. So you could argue that if Washington can do enough to keep McCaffrey in check and kick their butts, why does Elliott have to smash? You know what I mean? Likewise, just because Dallas has to win doesn't mean Washington has to let them, okay? Don't sell this short. This rivalry of Washington-Dallas has gone back a long time, and there is nothing that Washington would like more than to stick it to Dallas. That is just the way it is, especially with the defensive rivalries. And I will tell you this, if in fact I were Washington, and their defense, rush defense is not bad, I mean, I would not want Elliott to just run down my throats. I would rather challenge Prescott, who might be a little injured, right? to beat me through the air. So is that going to matter? Maybe not, but there's certainly a countervailing opinion to why Elliott is such a smash. So with that said, I feel more comfortable playing him, if that makes any sense. I feel more comfortable playing him if it was 15, 20%. If he were up at 50%, this could be kind of a funny spot to fade if you wanted to. And the way you fade it is either just ignoring the game or, like I said, taking Prescott with the passing game. Because, I mean, if I were the Washington coach, that's what I would do. I would say, look, let Prescott try to beat me. I'm just not letting Elliott run for 200 yards. So, I don't know. But, again, it is certainly certainly an easy play. It is certainly an easy story to tell, which to me makes it a little bit fishy and suspicious at 50% ownership. So, if you wanted to run it back for Washington, this guy Terry McLaurin has been just awesome pretty much all season. And depending on who they have throwing to him, actually it doesn't matter. I actually prefer Case Keenum throwing to him. If he's going to start, he is starting. So I do think that having a run back with McLaurin is going to make a lot of sense. So I would play him. All right, Houston, Tennessee. Houston has claimed that they're going to be playing their starters. Not convinced. No one's convinced. But if you do hear they're playing their starters, you can certainly go ahead and play DeAndre Hopkins or something like that. The interesting thing is on the Tennessee side, they 100% have to win. They are playing everybody, I presume. And, you know, and it's in a dome. Is Houston actually in a dome anymore? That's how bad I am. Did I think that Houston played in the Astrodome still? Is that possible? Well, they're in a dome. Let's put it that way. That's still the Astrodome, are they? They're probably some sponsored thing like the GoDaddy.com Bowl or whatever they're in. But it is in a dome, so it's good weather conditions. And don't kid yourself. You know, just because Derrick Henry, you have these ideas of him, you know, running through the cold and the snow and people not wanting to tackle him because it's cold. Believe me, he's going to do better in a dome, right? So if you want to play narrative, so you want to play a team that has to win, and you know where production is coming from, and you're playing against a team who might be resting people, including defensive players, maybe this could be the one that is the lowest owned of that group. So maybe you do something like Henry or A.J. Brown, like the normal guys you would play. You could play Tannehill. That's probably end up being a pretty chalky stack, don't you think? The Tannehill thing? I don't know. But this is a game that, again, you got to watch for coach speak. You got to watch for this. And certainly the Tennessee side is someplace where you can go. All right, so here, this is one that kind of is a little annoying. I'm going to say annoying. So this Indianapolis thing, I wouldn't say this Indianapolis thing. Let's just say what it is, this Leonard Fournette thing. So here's my issue. Leonard Fournette is one of the best projected running backs on the slate. Okay? Number 2, he's projected for 5% ownership. Okay? Under normal circumstances, I would say, just let me have all of it. Okay? If he is the number one projected, well, not number one, but one of the top projected players on the slate and 5% ownership, just let it roll. So what's stopping me from doing that? Let's think about this. Well, we have narrative issues. Number 1, Jacksonville has #given up. Well, you know why that sounds familiar? Because apparently they've been giving up for the past 5 weeks. If you go back to all the reviews in the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've said that Jacksonville's been giving up. So the given up downgrade is not significant, okay? They've given up just as much this week as they had 4 weeks ago. As a matter of fact, I would say that from a given up perspective, I think the Colts have been further along in the give up stage. In other words, I think Indianapolis has given up more recently than Jacksonville has given up. So I think the given up thing has kind of been played. So unless we hear that there's some reason why Fournette's going to be limited, I believe that the projections plus ownership vector, whatever, is going to drive me to this play. And again, it's a constant battle, whether it's stock market, whether it's DFS, whether it's even in poker, whatever it is, of balancing risk versus reward and factoring in countervailing inputs, whether it be projection, whether it be upside, whether it be ownership and construction. And yeah, you don't have everything in this game, and you don't have everything with Fournette, okay? Because you don't have the the extra motivation or whatever it is, and you do not have guarantees that he's going to be given the full workload because maybe they just want to get him through the season. But in the absence of news to the contrary, I'm just going to presume he's a good play. So I would watch for this. I would not let, with all the other, remember, it's a 16-game slate. Everybody's playing. With all the other stuff that you'll hear coming out about this one's active, this 3K guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's good. Ooh, this 3K guy is good, so I could jam in McCaffrey. This 3K guy is good, so I could jam in McCaffrey and Elliott. Or this quarterback is coming in, so I can jam in these guys. Maybe it's some idiot like Fournette, right? Like a Fournette-Henry pairing. Wouldn't that be awesome? You know what I mean? An AFC South kind of middling build that wins the $1 million, and not a McCaffrey Elliott plus 3K guy. I don't know. We'll see. Boy, there are a couple more games, and these are, two of them are pretty interesting actually. Like this Eagle Giant game, man. This can go crazy. This is an awesome game. I will tell you this: the Giants have been playing for nothing all year, and they have been bringing it. You know what I mean? They have been bringing it since week 8, and even with Barkley not doing anything all season until the last 2 weeks. Daniel Jones has been trying to sling it around. He fought through his fumbles and his interceptions and all this stuff. He knows he's the future of this team. They even, they rested him 1 week, whatever. They let Manning come in and get his swan song. Was it 2 weeks? And now Jones is back, slinging the ball around, and they're playing the Eagles, who have to win. Boy, oh boy, I'm telling you, I've lived in this town for my whole life. There is nothing the Giants would love more than to stick it to the Eagles, okay? From when Deshaun Jackson returned that punt, however long that was ago when the Giants punted it to him, these guys have been going after each other for a long time, and just because the Eagles need to win just does not make it so. And the Giants are going to bring their best game. Eagles are going to bring their best game, and this game could be fun. So I would 100% considering targeting all the guys from this game that are relevant, which are both quarterbacks, okay, which are both main running backs, Barkley or Sanders. I don't care if Howard's in or not. I would play Sanders and Barkley, and all the wide receivers that have been there in play, like Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, Slayton, Greg Ward, now 4,700. We had him at 3K, guys. Both the tight ends, Ertz and Goddard. Ertz, they have this questionable. He's going to practice Friday. I'm sure he'll be fine. But in any case, if he's not, then Goddard becomes pretty popular, so that becomes another situation. And again, I don't think there's going to be exceedingly a huge amount of ownership to these. Miles Sanders, 3%? No. Saquon Barkley, 7%? I don't know about this. Maybe I'm just an idiot. All right, Greg Ward, 15%. But doesn't it just seem like that kind of game? No? That's what this seems to me. To me, this seems to be the second best game. Atlanta, Tampa, and this one seem to be the two best games as far as I'm concerned. So, I don't know. What do I know? That would be my take. Denver, Oakland. Denver, they've been playing really well recently. Oakland has sort of given up. I think the give up vig is very, I don't know, maybe Oakland's got a little pride left in them, but I think Denver would have the edge in this game. So if I were going to play anybody from this game, I would play the Denver side. Cortland Sutton 6,400 though. 14% owned. I don't know if I could play him at that ownership. Philip Lindsay at 3%. Oh God. I already see where I'm headed here. He projects well. He's incredibly low owned. I'm just going to have to hope that people get too fancy and play guys that emerge as value that are not good players. That's what I'm going to have to do, I think. But then again, I mean, Lindsay did get vultured on the goal line. He's not the 100% lead back. He's not a lock or anything like that, especially at 6,100. But that's in the projections. He looks okay, I guess. 3%. Boy, I'm going to have to filter him in. And again, maybe the Denver defense or something like that. This is not as exciting a game for me as some of these others. I'll tell you what could be an exciting game is this Arizona Rams game. So here's the deal, and I've been saying this the whole season, that this Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, they just bring it 24/7, okay? From the opening kickoff right to the end, they are playing to win. They're playing every play. They are onside kicking. They are faking punts. They are throwing the ball on fourth. They're going for it on fourth down. They are just he's trying to impact his will and impact his system on this team, and they always bring it, okay? They're not that good, and they're not that good on defense, so they've had trouble winning games, but they definitely have not and will not give up. If Kyler Murray is playing in this game, I would expect another attempt for them to just get their crap going. You know what I mean? And on the Rams side, see, these are the teams that bother me. The teams that bother me are the teams that have the motivation downgrade. Okay, teams that have been playing for stuff all year, and just all of a sudden are poof out of it. See, these are the guys that I'm not interested in. Okay, I don't like playing guys. I don't want to say I don't like. I mean, look, they're going to project probably pretty well against an Arizona defense, right? It gives up zillions of yards to everybody. Robert Woods, not projecting all that well. Josh Reynolds, he's going to be the guy that's popping. Okay. I guess what it is McVay has already announced, I think, that he's going to be resting starters to some extent. So maybe that's why Josh Reynolds is popping. Maybe he's the way to go. But aside from that, I wouldn't go with anybody on the Rams side. I mean, they're just recently given up, let's put it that way. And I would also like to say that Jalen Ramsey's out, so I presume the defense is not going to give their 1,000% top effort either. So if you want to have some fun, I mean, you could play these Arizona guys. You know, maybe this is Larry Fitzgerald's last game. I don't know. Christian Kirk, maybe he's finally healthy. I mean, he didn't catch a single ball last week. You know, maybe Kyler Murray, if he's fully healthy, they just let him roll, you know? If he's out, like if Brett Hundley's out, no, I'm not going to play Brett Hundley, and I'm probably not going to play any of these other pass catchers. But if Murray is in, then I'll take a shot. So I did go a little more game by game than I would have than I was anticipating. But I hope that the themes throughout this analysis have given you guys something to think about. Okay. So to review. Let me just throw a couple of things through. Number one, must-win games don't win, okay? They don't necessarily win, right? Just because a team has to win doesn't make it so. Remember, the defense gets paid too. The other team gets paid too. And especially in these division games, there would be incredible motivation to knock that other team out, or at least put out a good enough effort to do so. So don't presume just because the team has nothing to play for that they're not going to try to play well. Some teams that rest their starters, that's something different. They're intentionally, what's the word I'm looking for, diluting their effort, right? But aside from that, just be careful about playing these must-win teams against teams that have quote-unquote given up. Think about when they've given up. Think about why they've given up. I mean, I go back to these Atlanta Tampa guys who have been just playing the same for weeks and weeks and weeks. The Giants who've been playing the same for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, while they technically have nothing to play for, they're just playing the exact same as they have been, which means they're going to be trying hard. They're going to be trying to throw the ball and getting their crap together. Let's put it that way. Okay, so again, don't get lazy on the slate. Watch for news. Watch for last-minute things, and yeah, you should adjust accordingly. But this is $1 million for first, so don't get lazy with this slate. Okay. All right, that's all I have. And the great thing about it is that after this slate, this is the last full NFL slate, which means that I can be fully, with the exception of that, I'll place the playoffs probably, but I will be mostly focused with respect to DFS at least on NBA type things. But I guess that's it. Have a good week 17, and I hope to be sweating you guys in the final couple of drives.